What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Hobby Hotline. This is episode 391. We are here on the Four Collectors YouTube channel. I am here with two of the original co-hosts when I first started getting on this show and doing some of the hosting. These were two of the guys that, I was originally hosting with. We have Dr. Jim Beckett. We have Uncle Rich Klein. Jim, I'll start with you. How's your week been? What you been up to?
Staying busy, but I'm just not shocked, but 391 episodes is a lot. Now, it's not a lot for you, Adam, because you did daily for so long. And for me, I've done for a while, but 391 it's not a, round number or anything, but it's, I'm happy. We wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't for the audience.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And 391 only going once a week. We were twice a week for a little bit, but now we're back to once a week. But yeah, my first episode was episode 100, I think. So it's crazy to think that there's been 300 more episodes that we've done collectively as a unit. I think this is probably one of the only shows where you have this many different types of, voices and this type of diversity, whoever is on the show, you got tons of different co-hosts every week. It's great. Yeah. Uncle Rich, what's up with you? How's your week been?
Oh, my week was fine. I celebrated another trip around the sun on Thursday. And I went to a TCG show yesterday that our friends from the Dallas Card Show put on. And it's almost a pop-up 400 card show, if you can believe that. And it was nice and inexpensive to get there. And I did not have to pay for parking. It was $5 to get in the door, and all the pretty young ladies at the front desk know me, and they said, "Go see. You can go see Jericho if you want." And I said, "Look, for $5 to get in the door, I'll just knowing this question money, I'll just give you the $5. I'll just give you the $5." And everybody started laughing. And I actually budgeted X amount of money just to bring, and I actually spent the money I brought with me, which was a total shock because there were actually baseball card value boxes there. I didn't go through the other sports, but if it's not the worst afternoon in the world to spend the afternoon going through value boxes.
Yep, absolutely. And I think this past week we jumped we're less than 50 days away from the Nationals. So that's another milestone here as we get into, I guess it's almost national season. I mean, I know that they've got Fanatics Fest, I think is before the National this year. And Fanatics Fest is actually going to be the same weekend as the World Cup final that's going on at MetLife. You're going to have, I think it's at one of the convention centers in the city. You're going to have Fanatics Fest. But speaking of the World Cup, that's actually going to be our first topic for today's show. So last night we had the U.S. men's national team. Really kind of dominate. I watched most of the game. The second half was there were at times it didn't look as good as maybe people were expecting after that first half, 3-0, almost 4-0. If Pulisic doesn't go off sides there. But yeah, it's going to be exciting. These players are Balogun. He scored 2 goals, and he was actually wearing the debut patch that Topps is using. I'm not really sure if they've come out with news about where they're going to be putting the debut patches. But I'll go around the horn here. Dr. Jim, I know it was a bit late. I think it was a 9:00 start there, but were you able to catch any of that game last night?
I had a date last night with the most wonderful woman in the world, my wife. But here's the thing. I got home and I found what happened to the Paraguay vaunted defense. They were supposed to be so strong, and they got 4 goals scored on them. So either that means they're not as good, or maybe the U.S. team is going to outperform their expectations. That'd be great.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, this is since they announced the World Cup, and then in 2020, I guess now at this point it's 2022. I've been following this U.S. team, and this is one of the better teams that they've had. Rich, I'll kind of ask you the same question. What are your thoughts too, just about the World Cup in general here?
I was shocked by the dominance of the USA team last night. I watched most of the game. It's rare for me nowadays to actually watch sporting events, but I watched that, and the match was so dominated by USA, and I'm thinking this is like a hockey game where you can tell who the better team is because they're controlling the puck in the other team's defensive zone. They were controlling the ball in the other team's defensive zone. They were just and fuego, as the experience goes. What's going? I just heard my wonderful wife in the background hearing us talk about this and screaming USA. If you caught that, if that got caught on the video. And what's interesting is, by the way, there's a couple other things. The Fanatics Fest is at the Javits Center in New York.
Javits Center, right?
It's an insane place. It's the same weekend as the big West Coast Card Show hosted by Rob Virus and his crew, and the Dallas Card Show. It's going to be, this would be a week if we were back in Beckett in 1992. We'd be sending people to all three shows to compare notes. I shudder what the budget would have been at Beckett in 1992 to send people to those. Well, actually, one would be in Dallas, but I shudder what the budget would have been to send people to those shows in those days. Yeah, but what's interesting is, especially during the World Cup, the sport card interest, and since this is Hobby Hotline, its sports card interest has really exploded. I know 4 years ago, when I would sit with Angela and Stefan at the ComC table booth at the Dallas Card Show, and I remember the month before the show, we had one of our best months ever at that show, as people were sending in soccer card after soccer card with like the select or the elite service to get them on before the whole tournament began.
Yeah, Dr. Jim, do you think you could turn your speaker down just a tiny bit? I think that there's some feedback coming through your computer. When I think, like, when I was speaking and then when Rich was speaking, I could see your mic going off a little bit. Is this better? Let's see. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think so. At least for now, we'll see. But yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Rich.
No, that's fine. And it's the interest during the card show. The interest in cards has really exploded in soccer. And I think that's great on a worldwide thing. Fanatics talks about expanding the hobby 10x. Soccer is still the most popular sport in the world.
Right.
You're going to if you get a big uptick in soccer, you're going to get a lot of the way to 10x. You know, and I also just saw that PSA is part of dealing with their backlog. One of their foreign offices starts a soft opening in July and really a more heavy beginning in August.
Yeah, I think you're right about the 10xing with the foreign market. And I mean, there's a guy, I don't know if you guys follow Boston sports radio, but there's a guy named Michael Felger. And he is like a contrarian, like everything. Like, he's not from Boston, so like all of his takes are very anti-Boston. Like, he always is kind of crapping on the team a little bit. He had a take that was very interesting this past week about the MLS and their deal when they brought Messi on, and the Apple TV deal, and that I think it's been not so good. It's good for Apple, obviously, but I think for the fans, putting it behind that big paywall really, I think, hurt soccer a little bit. And, you know, I expected that deal to help soccer, but I think what ended up happening was that they just made the sport a little bit more inaccessible to watch. So the interest, I think, actually should be much higher for this World Cup than it is, especially for a lot of the U.S. players, like, you know, not Pulisic or McKinney, but like some of the U.S. players, like the goalie, for example, he plays for New York FC. So there should be a little bit more interest, I think, in the World Cup from a cards perspective. I think that there could be. And, you know, I guess we can go back to the last time the World Cup was in the U.S., which I think was 92 or 93. Is that correct?
94.
94. Okay. Yeah. So, you know, Dr. Beckett, do you remember back then, not to age myself, but I think I was born in 93. So I was 1 year old. So I was not into sports cards at 1 year old. But do you remember what it was like? Was there really any soccer cards at that time? Like, or was it, how much different is it compared to now?
No, Upper Deck put out a lot of soccer cards back in those days. They had various sets around 94. My big regret, I'm remembering this now, that there were at least one game and maybe more down at the Cotton Bowl, and I remember getting offered tickets and not taking them. But I don't remember the tickets being that expensive. What we have now, 30 plus years later, is that tickets are really, really expensive, and it's just like the
expensive.
card in the sports card world. I mean, they're testing the limits of their best customers and the fans by raising ticket prices, just like box prices and card prices. They're getting up so high that you want it, but you're just thinking, wow, do I want to pay this much to sit in the there are no cheap seats. You know, you can pay huge bucks for something that's in the rafters.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I was going to try to go to the Norway versus France game that's at Gillette Stadium, or Boston Stadium as it's been called for the World Cup, because they had to take the sponsors off, which I think is very funny because they also have all the sponsors on all of the stuff inside the stadium, but for some reason outside the stadium they're not allowed to, which also, again, calling it Boston Stadium when Boston's 45 minutes away, it's, you know, that's the case with a lot of the stadiums. Actually, I know that like the Dallas Stadium is in Arlington, which is half an hour away. I think they're calling it San Francisco Stadium when it's actually in Santa Clara, which is far away. It's and even same with them calling it New York, and it's at MetLife. It's just, you know, it's going to be interesting to see how there's some of that stuff going on. But yeah, I think the ticket price for that game, which obviously would have been Mbappe versus Haaland, which are two of the biggest names in the sport, those tickets were like $1,000. So I'm not, you know, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to. I don't have $1,000 laying around to go to the World Cup. Also, I don't know if either of you have been to Gillette Stadium. It's like on a road. It's like off of a road. Like it's not easy to get to whatsoever. Like there's going to be incredible amounts of traffic around that stadium. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that goes for games at, you know, the Boston Stadium, I guess. But, you know, Rich, kind of a similar question, like the World Cup, it's driven a lot of fans to be interested. Has that been, or interested in maybe cards a little bit more? Do you remember if it was like that? Like, do you remember if the last World Cup or any of the other World Cups has really driven fans to buy more soccer, or is it kind of has it been a steady increase over these past couple of years?
As I said, it's been a steady increase overall in soccer, and it gets exacerbated during the World Cup. I pointed out about, you know, the submissions in 2022 to COMC. I'm sure the submissions in 2026, especially being here in America and Canada and Mexico, are even higher and even more intense. And I do remember, as Jim said, the 1994 Upper Deck sets. And those sets where they did many different varieties of those cards. I don't want to call them variations, but I think they had several different languages on the cards. They were very active in those days of doing several different languages on cards, you know, basketball as well. So I think in the last few years, there's definitely been growth in soccer. And I think we're going to see another push upward. And as a person who has gone to some MLS games here, it's been a while. It's great to see the interest. And recently, my wife's cousin's son is on an elite soccer, 16 and under soccer team. And they were in a pre-national tournament, I guess, competition here in Dallas near where they play in Frisco. And I will tell you that the recruiters, the college recruiters, the foreign recruiters, these kids, this was a very high level soccer for 16-year-olds. And I think that was the max age. So I think it might have been 16 and under. And when we got to the match, and we pull into the parking lot, and I see somebody, and I think I see these two guys wearing Clemson University shirts. And I said, if I remember, you guys have a pretty good team. And they said, yeah, we've won 2 national titles in the last 5 years. I said, okay, let me rephrase that. You guys have really good teams there.
Yeah.
But that's the type of level of people who were coming to recruit at those games, for those matches. And soccer has truly become one of the most popular sports in this country. I saw a stat the other day where now soccer is considered by 10% of the American populace their most popular sport. In third place, baseball is now fourth, which of course is a baseball fan that's a little annoying to me, but I understand why.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think this generation, I've called them the golden generation. I don't know if that's something that a lot of people agree with. Like, this is one of the better opportunities I think that we have to win this World Cup. I'm not even really 100% sure if they can or not. Like Spain and Germany and all these teams, those kids are born with a soccer ball at their feet. So, like, here in the United States, we've seen, like, with the MLS, they luckily have, the league itself, like the MLS is, I think now it's 30 years old at this point. So there's an opportunity for players to go professionally at a young age, and it's driven more players to play that sport, I think, than we've seen in years past. And you've got a player like Pulisic, who at 13 years old, the only way for him to play professionally, really, and to do it at a profitable level, was to go over to Germany and play for Dortmund. So, and it's similar with like Weston McKennie and Tyler Adams. So, I mean, those players are part of this generation that I think are going to be, I think it's one of our best opportunities to win the World Cup. We'll see maybe 2030 how these players go, but like, this is the prime for a lot of these players. So I think that this is one of the better shots that we have. If they play up to the competition, then that's going to be good. I think one of the problems they had before was they just didn't play up to the competition. Like, they would play down to their opponents. So that was one thing I was nervous about last night. And then they scored 3 goals in the first half and kind of was stomping them a little bit. I mean, yeah, I think that they're going to need to score a lot of goals in this World Cup, because their defenders play up. Like, Anthony Robinson, he plays up on the end there. So they're going to have to score a lot of goals. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, we'll kind of move on here from World Cup stuff. I'll just kick it to Dr. Beckett one last time. Is there anything else you had about the World Cup, or was there anything else you had there?
I think FIFA has done some things that people haven't liked, but the other sports leagues for their big events are probably thinking, that's interesting that you can, charge that much for tickets, and that you can kind of gerrymander the parking to have approved tailgaters, and then remote parking that's way away that's still really expensive. And so I think the leagues are watching, and I hope they don't copy some of those that might be considered cash grabs. FIFA, they only have once every 4 years to grab, but they're really grabbing.
Right, totally. Rich, same question. Are you good to anything else you had on the World Cup here?
You and Jim have both pointed out about how Gillette Stadium is located and some of the, and I'll put in air quotes, cash grabs. Remember that they are not just charging a lot of money to park at Gillette Stadium. If you have to shuttle your way to Gillette Stadium, they are charging an arm and a leg for you to get from your remote parking space to Gillette Stadium. Yeah. It's not a free shuttle. It is an expensive little shuttle. In fact, one of the issues with New York, and I remember doing this, I could take the bus from Port Authority to whatever they call Giant Stadium now, or the Byrne Arena, when it was the Byrne Arena when I lived in New Jersey. I don't know what the corporate names are now, so I apologize to the corporate people. But you could take the bus. Well, they're charging now $100 for what used to be a $2 bus ride.
Yeah, right. It's the same with the commuter rail from Boston to Gillette Stadium. I think is it's usually like $10 to $15 if you're going to like a Patriots game, and I'm fairly confident it's like $80 now, which it's unfortunate. That's kind of what they're doing, but I mean, I don't know. I think it's unfortunate, but when you have an event like this and the demand is going to be there, I guess it's all you can say is just that's what capitalism is going to capitalism. If there's money to be made, people are going to try and make it, unfortunately.
But Adam, there's also increased cost of services for those cities and areas and police and all that kind of stuff, traffic control, all that stuff. So I have a little bit of sympathy, but when it's 500%, I'm wondering.
Right. Totally. Yep. I agree. We have, it's been a pretty heavy sports week rather than a sports card week necessarily. We have Game 5 of the NBA Finals tonight, and the Knicks are, the Game 4 in NYC. That was maybe one of the best NBA Finals games we've ever seen with the comeback that they had. And the game 5, it looks like the Knicks could potentially pull off. I suppose it would be an upset. I mean, I don't know. The Spurs are good. The Knicks are good. They're both good teams. So I think the Spurs probably win this. And then the Knicks, I think, will probably end up winning. I think just based on a 3-1 deficit, it's hard to come back from in the NBA Finals. But yeah, so NBA Finals stuff, it's very, very fun. Rich, I'll start with you. What are your kind of overall thoughts here, NBA Finals? And I guess we can, relate it to cards, I suppose, as well.
Well, there are a couple of things. First, I was a Knicks fan growing up. It's been 53 years. That's long enough. Second, when I remember I was on a family vacation in Maine in like 1970. Or 71. It's the sixth, and the second year of the Tall Boys on basketball cards. It was really cool because in that series were NBA Finals cards where they had recaps of each game. So even going back to the very beginnings almost of Topps doing NBA cards, they would at least talk about the NBA Finals. There have been 37 or 38 occasions where teams have had 3-1 deficits in the NBA Finals. Only the Cavaliers in 2016 have ever pulled off the comeback.
Right.
So, and I remember I was monitoring the game slightly the other night, and I saw the scores like 75-46 or something like that. And I said, okay, we're just going 6 or 7. And it's
right.
And the next morning I woke up and it was like, wait a second. OG wins on a tap at the buzzer. It's like, did I miss something? Did I wake up in an alternate universe? And I think Fanatics has already said like the netting from the game is going to be on a card. If that card is not on a Topps now and that card has not sold like 10,000 copies, I'd be shocked.
Right.
I'd be that. And that is one of the great things, and I'll say Panini Instant from when they were doing it and Topps now has done, is you get instantaneous cards of the really iconic moments of sports. You don't have to wait anymore 4 months, 6 months to get the iconic moment. It's immediate.
Right, exactly. And so, Dr. Beckett, kind of similar question here. Like, what are your thoughts on the finals? Have you been kind of following it? Then I guess if you want to relate it to any card thoughts about the finals or NBA cards just in general here.
I'd love to see a game 6. I just think they're building up the suspense. So we'll see. The Spurs are a young team, and it's a gut punch to lose like that. So
yeah,
they're going to come back strong at home, and then game 6, game 7. Could there be a game 7? I don't know. I'm not done with basketball. I think the drama. Well, it's just the Spurs go up in every game there. They come out strong and then hold on. So this is. I wonder if an element of that is coaching or the fact that all their they got mainly young guys. But I'd like to see them come out strong tonight. And then either way, you can't lose in one sense, because if it goes back to New York for a game 6, that will be so bonkers.
Yeah, definitely. Especially,
any of that stuff is good for the hobby.
Right, totally. Yeah, especially with what we've seen just in these last 2 games in New York. The celebrities have been coming out in troves to sit courtside there. I don't know if you guys saw the Stefan Castle card. I actually ordered a couple of them. Let's see if it's in this article. I don't think so. But it was like the celebrities was like Tina Fey, Ben Stiller, like Spike Lee. Like there was like 10 of the celebrities that were in the front row there or on the back of this card. It's going to be a very interesting one to see how many of them sell, and if it ends up being like, because we've seen the cards with like Drake in the background, then there's the famous card with the Menendez brothers, and there's been all of these famous cards, and then you have the one where I think it was there was some other rapper that was on the back of some Ja Morant card. So it's interesting to see I would like to see Topps capitalize on that a little bit more, figure out a way to get more of the celebrities in the back of these cards, because I think it adds kind of just a cool element to these cards. And I agree with you, Dr. Beckett. I'm not ready to see the NBA in the season. I mean, it's been a really great season. My Celtics obviously didn't do so well, unfortunately losing in the first round. Actually, they were up 3-1 and they lost. So that was it can happen in the playoffs, not so much in the finals, like you said, Rich. But yeah, it's definitely going to be all these games have been pretty close and good. So we'll see how this ends up going for the NBA. So, I mean, I don't know. Did you guys have any other thoughts on the NBA stuff? I mean, like go ahead, Jim.
I just think Michael Rubin, Fanatics, Topps, they've got this spectacular opportunity to bring into the Topps now some combo signed, short printed versions that have Taylor Swift or Ben Stiller or Spike Lee, along with OG Anunoby or Jalen Brunson. I mean, if they've got them, it's like at the rookie at the draft, they're all right there. They could say, look, can you sign this? Now again, it might have to be a sticker or something like that, but lining up and having a Jalen Brunson Spike Lee card, or that's signed by both, to me, I think you'd get a lot of PR for that. And again, I'm all about 10xing as well, and 10xing is being more in the public consciousness.
Right. Yeah. I mean, just like if we zoom in here, you got like the who's who of New York Knicks fans. You got Tracy Morgan. Is that his name?
Morgan, yeah.
Tracy Morgan, Spike Lee. I don't know if that's Michael Rubin or not. It might be potentially. Then you got obviously Ben Stiller. Unfortunately, my guy Timothy Chalamet was the guy with these orange pants here, and he's being blocked, I think, by the image or by the player. But yeah, the amount of celebrities on this card is like pretty wild. And I don't know if they had any plans to do any celebrity stuff with this card specifically, but if they go into, like you said, if they go back to New York, I think that they have to set something up here. I think, like you said, Dr. Beckett, like they should probably set something up where they know who the celebrities are and they could do some sort of NBA celebrity front row set. I mean, I think that would be really cool.
And the photographers can, the access for photography at NBA is very controlled, and these are expert photographers. You could get the field of vision to be more prominent for these celebrities. You're just like what you're showing there. You could more lock in, and like I said, I think for Michael Rubin and Fanatics, I'm not sure there's rules. It's not illegal if the Players Association is okay with having other featured people on a basketball card, especially if it's going to expand the market. So I'd love to see that.
Yeah, right. I totally agree. And yeah, so Rich, any final thoughts here on the NBA Finals or NBA cards?
One, I don't know if you saw, but there was recently a Yasiel Puig Topps Now World Series card, PSA 10, that sold for like $60,000 because Kobe Bryant's very visible on the back. And one thing you have to understand, and Brian Gray pointed this out recently, Vanessa Bryant is not letting Kobe appear on any cards right now. So right now, the universe of Kobe Bryant's cards, much big as it is closed.
Yeah.
And that's very interesting. So that shows just how popular these fan backgrounds can be on a card. Also, one thing about Wemby, I don't think in this case, Topps, the NBA can lose whichever team wins the title. The Knicks, because they're in New York, one of the major media markets still in the world. It's great. And the Knicks have very personable players as their key things. And if the Spurs pull off the comeback, Wemby reminds me, and I mentioned this recently, of a very young Lou Alcindor. What people forget about Lou Alcindor, because most of the video we've seen of Lou Alcindor is with the Lakers when he was a little bit older. But a very young Lou Alcindor, I remember watching NBA games on ABC. Lou Alcindor led fast breaks. Lou Alcindor was a very good ball handler. He was a life young player. Wemby has the same skills a young Lou Alcindor had, later Kareem, and even more. He can shoot from way downtown bank. I mean, I've seen him hit 35, 40 footers in the NBA finals. That range is just astounding at any age and at any size. And the fact that he's 7'4", 7'5", doing that. And I think it's just a maturity issue right now. But I'll point out the one possible downside is we all thought Orlando, when they had all those young guys, they had Shaq and they had Penny, and they get to the finals and Houston beats them. They never got there again. So there's always that possibility. I mean, I don't want to be the naysayer that this could be one and done, but some of the history is they're one and done. The other history is there's a learning curve in the NBA, and getting to the finals so quickly is a major learning curve. And then the next step becomes the next step. So either possibility is possible. That's terrible to say. But either option for the future is possible for the Spurs. And I'm excited for Topps on all of this. There's, as you pointed out, with the celebrities at MSG, and there are very specific rules, by the way, for the celebrities at MSG. They have to stay the whole game. They are not allowed to leave early. You and I, if we're at a game and we decide when the Spurs were up 29, we wanted to leave, we could probably leave. The celebrities have to stay the whole game. That's actually part of the contract they signed to be in celebrity role at MSG.
Okay, thought question. Let's assume that the Spurs win Game 5, so they go back to New York for Game 6. Do you think there will be a bigger riot if they win the Knicks or if they lose? Either way, I think there's going to be madness in the streets. And I have some concern about that. Win or lose, I think people are going to go nuts because, like Rich said, the 53 years of pent-up demand.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of one of the cool things about having a team in the championship where the stadium is in the middle of a big city like that. Because, if you have, and also it's maybe different because it's maybe not NFL so much because obviously it's in a different place, but like when you have the games in the middle of the city, I think it creates an environment that is much more interesting to follow from a fan perspective, like fans watching fans like in the streets like that, because for San Antonio, I don't know if that stadium, I mean, it's not in New York City, obviously it's not like how MSG is in New York City, but like the stadium being so easily walkable too, I think really makes for an interesting, cool environment. And I think someone said in the chat here that they're probably gonna riot one way or either way, unfortunately. And I think both of you guys mentioned this. The players getting back to the NBA Finals is very hard. I think LeBron and maybe Curry were the last two players where you expected them to be in the finals every year, but the past 5 years, the matchup has been different, and no team that's been in the finals the past 5 years has gone back in any of the matchups. So, you had Celtics, Mavs, you had the Bucks and Suns, you had last year with Indiana and OKC, and then New York and San Antonio this year. I think it's driving fans to watch the games more too. I know that I've seen some of the statistics of just that. These are some of the most watched games we've seen in like years. But I think it's definitely going to be fun to. I think this finals is going to go down as probably one of the better, more interesting ones in terms of the interest in just the two teams. I think, in my opinion, it might just be that it's Wemby versus New York. I think that's maybe one of the things that's been the most interesting here. But so those are kind of the sports topics. We're going to get into a little bit of sports cards. One of the big sports card stories this past week was the release of Topps Series 2 for baseball. And, I'll ask you, Rich, this first. I know we were kind of talking about this before the show a little bit about Series 2. What were your thoughts about Series 2? Any insight here? What were you kind of thinking this week when this product released?
Way back in the day, pre-2018, 2017, 2019, Topps Series 2 for about 10, 15 years was the redheaded stepchild of the hobby. Top Series 1 was always the most popular release each year because there is a whole group of people who every year buy something from Topps because they did that as a kid growing up and they still buy Topps. And what did they buy? Top Series 1. I mean, and you still see that. Before Top Series 1, you'll see MLB Network, they break the packs on the air. The million card rips we've had, all these things about the Top Series 1 release that don't come out for Top Series 2. I realized the world had changed circa 2018 when I think our former teammate at Beckett, Dave Slipka, came up to the ComC office that we had in Dallas. And I'm looking at the checklist and I'm saying, this will be like the last many years. This will be $40, $45, $50 on release. Not so much. Box prices were starting to explode even then. I think that was the same year I couldn't buy a Heritage. I waited a week or two for Heritage and it went from 75 to 125 like that. And it was the same thing that basically happened where I expected it, looking at the checklist, to be $45 and I'd have a good old time buying it at 50 or 55 at an LCS, and not so much. And now people look forward to Top Series 2 like everything else. And Topps, with all the little things they put into it, and this is to Fanatics' credit, and before that, Topps' credit, it's now a very popular product to get. And I think it's actually still printed less than Top Series 1. So I think there's actually some hidden value in Top Series 2, which I never thought I'd say. But even at these levels, I think there's hidden value.
Yeah. And they added, I think they have the short prints for JJ Weatherholt and Kevin McGonigal. And those were two of the top 5 prospects going into the season, along with Connor Griffin. And Connor Griffin, he's going to be in Update. He's going to be in Topps Update later on in the year. Unfortunately, didn't make his debut in time for this product, but did make it in time for Topps Update. The other cool thing that they're adding, they did this for Series 1 with that Mickey Mantle, the graded 1952. They are going to do, I believe it was a Hank Aaron and a Jackie Robinson graded redemption for in Series 2. I think that they did something along the lines of, it was the top 75 baseball cards of all time. They picked some of the best cards, and they're doing graded redemptions here. So, Dr. Beckett, I'll ask you this question. Is Series 2, is that enough for someone like you to buy into Series 2? Like what did you think about when you saw the graded redemption concept that Topps was coming out with?
I think they're doing things that are trying to drive interest in the product. And it is a separate product. Series 2 for 2026 Topps is a separate product, but is it a separate set? It's not really a separate set. And yet, when we were doing our price guides back in the day, and when ComC is listing these, is sometimes they list it as the base cards there as Topps Series 2 instead of just 2026 Topps. When they're coming out, it matters, but a few years later, whether something was from 5 years ago, whether it was Series 1 or Series 2, you could tell by the number. Right. And sometimes they have different inserts, but like Rich was saying, if you're wanting to put away, like Rich does for his nephew, I think, you want to buy the whole set, and the whole set is Series 1, Series 2, and probably the extendeds. So, but again, the marketing of it is, this is Series 2. It's out right now. It's got this great stuff in it. Jump in. That's not the way I hobby anymore. So I wouldn't, I'm really, I'm nothing against it. It makes a lot of sense to do it that way. Because it keeps something fresh on the shelves, and with a different player composition, you could get. There's stuff in there that you couldn't get in Series 1. So I think it's a good idea, but I don't hobby in the moment that much. Yep. I guess that way I would say it is that I appreciate what's going on the court, on the field, and I watch with interest. But I don't run out and buy immediately. And if something is a brand new product, I'm more likely to let it percolate. And, when I go to a show, if I see stuff interesting, in the dollar boxes, I'll jump all over that. The newer, the better. there.
Right.
But I've got to know if it's new. It's the reason I haven't seen it is not just because it just came out. It's because it has to be a little bit tougher. Rich is always admonishing me, do not go for the base cards unless they're SPs or SSPs or back variations or things like that. But I read with interest.
When I admonish you about the base cards, it's buying huge quantities of it. If you're buying a rookie card of a base card in a value box, I'm fine with that. It's when you look at a Huggins and Scott lot and it's 98% base cards, that's when I tell you not to buy those.
Rich, that was 14 years ago. I have learned my mistake. Thank you very much. And I made an additional mistake a few years ago, but my frequency of mistakes is getting better.
But I will point out one thing is that for COMC, the Series 2 being broken out is because of the fresh pulls, and it's a business decision because those get discounted when they're sent in because we want at COMC very fresh material, and the way you get fresh material is by doing a discount thereof, and that is, Jim is correct. It is part of the same set. Mm-hmm. You know, when I buy for my great nephew the factory set, Series 1 and Series 2, and usually something extras in there. And the last 3 years, I've been able to get really good prices on those sets, so it's been very good. But Series 1 and Series 2 is broken out because that update has always been broken out because the numbering has always been different in that.
Yeah. But COMC, you know, it's not just a discount; it's half off.
Yeah.
And not only that, they have windows, which are a little bit confusing for me. So I stay away from that, Rich, even though it's a fabulous deal to get half price ingestion on. But I don't know, is it this year's sets or things that have been out less than 3 months? I always think it's this year's cards, which again would mean Series 1, Series 2. They've all come out in 2026.
And you've talked about this before, that you sat on and this is for Jim, you sat on the Zoom meeting about what cards should be in the 75 greatest cards of all time redemptions. During that meeting, and remind me, did they also say they were breaking up like 25 first series, 25 second series, and 25 update? Or did they just talk about these?
No, we didn't talk about that. That was it was mainly to try to get the top, the 75, the top 10, and there was actually a lot of time spent on the bottom 10. So it was very fascinating, and I wasn't silent, but I was one voice out of many, and it was interesting, and but no one person was going to agree with everything. But yeah, it was you in a list like that, you're trying to have when it's not just done by value, they were trying to have something for everybody, and so to spread it out, that would make sense.
Right. Yep. And so we're moving a little bit towards the latter half of the show here. We are within this past week. Maybe I mentioned this before. Maybe I mentioned this before the show. I forget. We are 50 days less than 50 days away from the Nationals. So I think it's good to, remind people to get yourself prepared. Start thinking about the cards that you want to buy. Start thinking about, what you're going to be doing at the show, all of these types of things. And I think it's good to bring things back to just collecting in general and maybe not talk about so much of the news. So, Dr. Beckett, I'll ask you this question about when you are going to shows. I think this is something that I've been wondering for a while is like, you have seen millions, hundreds of, I don't know how many cards you've seen in your lifetime. I mean, more than maybe potentially anybody really. So like when you're going through either dollar boxes or you're going through people's showcases, like what are some of the cards that you're looking out for that you like to buy that are up to the standard of like the Dr. Beckett collection? Like what are you kind of looking for?
That's hard to explain. I mean, I think Rich understands that it's basically, I don't want basic cards. I don't even want, good cards of great players if they're very, very common. I've said anything that's in the dollar box is probably because it's not gradable and it's not whatnotable. So it's not something that's going to grab somebody. And so I'm looking for the other stuff it's probably more lower supply and lower demand, Adam. And that's funny. Lower supply means you're not going to see it very often. Lower demand is the reason why it's in the dollar box, because if it's high demand and low supply, it's wow. I mean, it'll be a big price.
Yeah.
So, and that's fun. So I'm looking for things I haven't seen. Rich does that to a different degree with his eye for the vintage stuff. I'll do some vintage, but I have manipulated through my dexterity or handled millions of vintage cards, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And it never gets old, but it's still in the dollar box. I'm looking for stuff that I haven't seen.
Right. Yeah, that's cool. I'm kind of in a similar boat there with the dollar box stuff. It's just kind of like random stuff that I think is cool. I mean, like I come from the graphic design world where like that's what I got my bachelor's degree in, and then I got my master's in marketing, and so the graphic design was really what drove me into sports cards, and then the market kind of followed as a secondary thing, but it was kind of all that stuff is just very interesting to me. So Rich, I kind of have one of the same question for you. Like so go ahead, Dr.
Let me finish. I mean, don't assume that means, Adam, I'm looking for beautiful cards.
Right.
I like ugly cards too. In fact, sometimes low demand cards are ugly. Right. But if they're low supply and low demand because they're ugly, I may still pick them up because they're low supply.
Right. The uniqueness.
They're more unique. I mean,
right. Yep.
Not every insert concept works equally well. Some are body or primitive.
Right. Exactly. Rich, I guess I'll kind of ask you a similar question. Like when you're going to shows, like you said, you just mentioned that you were at a show recently, like this past week, or actually maybe it was potentially night. Yesterday.
It was yesterday afternoon.
Yeah. What was it that you were like looking for? I know you had mentioned to us before the show that you spent your whole budget at the show. So like, what was it that you were looking for, or were you looking for anything and you kind of were just going with the flow?
I go with the flow. I don't look for anything specifically nowadays because the universe is so wide. I stayed in the baseball lane. I could have done other sports, but I stayed in a baseball lane. And the best, I'm going to put in again air quotes, bargain I picked up, and I was smiling to myself when I found it. There was a 2026 Heritage All-Star just because they use the same design as 1977 Topps, and I knew there was an all-star notation variation of Riley Green. That when I'm going through the box, I said, "Oh, that's the all-star variation. Okay, I'm buying that card." And I think back when I looked it up, I priced everything I bought last night, so that's very fresh in my mind. And the box had a nice. And the guy had a nice detailed way of how he broke the card. And I found 25 cards and he had broken it down. So the 25 cards cost me $15. And the Beckett book value, which I think is close to real value in that case, is $10 for the Riley Green card. So I was very happy with that card. I figured at this point, everything else is gravy. But that's something I knew. I get that because Jim and I both have the ability to know what we've not seen before.
Right. Yep.
And I recognized immediately that's a different design on the All-Star. Okay, that's a good card to buy. And both of us look for stuff we haven't in some ways seen before. And sometimes we're wrong, and that's okay. Because when you're in the value box, your cost is minimal. In fact, I actually had two people yesterday, our friend Stan, and you've gone to his garage. He has garage sales at his house, and he's got a nice house he's renting, and it's full of baseball cards, but everything is well delineated. And we've both gone to his house during his garage sale to buy cards. And, he had a box, and some of the stuff I bought from him yesterday was $1. I'm thinking, okay, it's $1. And I knew there were some 2007 and 8 Dowdy short prints of Hall of Famers, and they book at $5 or $6, but I knew they were shorter. And he goes to me, by the way, Rich, anything you want in the $2 box is $1. So, and I bought those, even though the percent isn't great. It's like, okay, I know those are shorter printed cards. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
And that's what you mean by go with the flow. It's not like I'm looking for Dowdy short prints from 2008 when I walk into a show. But they're Hall of Famers. They were shorter printed. There was Al Kaline and Harmon Killebrew and I think Bob Gibson. And I bought some other things like that. And I'm thinking, okay, this is the type of stuff I like to buy at the show. It's okay. It's a base card, but it's a short print base.
Right.
And I bought some rookie cards yesterday. The guy who Jim and I knows that he's worked with our friend Bill Salit. He's done a lot of autograph stuff. And he looked through what I bought, and I bought like an Andy Page's base rookie because I didn't think I had one. And I bought some Yamamoto base rookies. I didn't have those. And they're 60 cents each. I don't mind buying base cards when they're very selective. I don't want to buy lots of base cards. I've gotten enough base cards over the years as donations. I don't want to deal with base cards. But I will deal with very specific base cards. And Jim talked about this. He ended up with a pallet of cards from the 2022 National. But he did very well with them. And people, I had two different people. Stan asked me, and the other guy asked me how you buy and why are you buying these cards? And I explained he's actually, the return on investment is very good. Plus, with the inventory that you already have, it makes your eBay lots even better. It gooses up the eBay lots, and that it's actually a good business model for Jim to use. And he's figured it out with his PhD in statistics, how to make it work. I can't make it work as well as he can, but he knows how to make it work.
It's a return on enjoyment too.
Right. Yes.
I'm really enjoying it. And lest again, I want to give a shout out to Rich because it was almost exactly a year ago, I think, because I think it was last May or June. Rich said, "There's a garage sale that you've got to come to." And he told me who it was. And so I went to the address. It was a 20-minute drive. I get there, and not only is the garage it was completely full of cards, the 2-car garage, that there were tables out into the driveway. Okay. However, here's the punchline. It was like a 3 or 4 bedroom house. Every bedroom was full of cards.
Wow. Yeah.
The kitchen was full of cards. It was a house of cards, literally. You couldn't rent it out. I mean, it's a storage house for his cards, and everything was priced a little bit high, but he made deals, and so that was fascinating. Thank you, Rich. But it must not have been that successful because he hasn't done it for the next year. Either that or there's zoning problem.
I don't think Raymond's worked more than Raymond usually alerts. Raymond was alerting me. Our friend Raymond Jones was alerting me to that. And if Raymond works it, he alerts me to that.
Right. Yeah, and if anybody has any questions, here as we wrap up, just drop them in the chat. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Rich.
No, it's just a cool house because everything's it seems weird, but everything's well organized.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. If like I said, like I was just saying, if you any other questions as we're wrapping up here, make sure you drop some questions in the chat. I thought this was an interesting one that I kind of want to expand upon a little bit. So I mean, I'll ask you, Dr. Beckett, this, so, we've seen obviously Whatnot, and I think TikTok Shop and eBay Live and Fanatics Live. A lot of the dollar auctions and these singles markets are kind of, I don't know. I don't know if I want to say necessarily driven by a lot of these cards that you can find in dollar boxes. So I want to expand upon this question here. Have you seen a change in cards that you're finding in those dollar boxes, or what have you seen a change? I mean, I guess that's maybe the question there for you, Dr. Beckett.
Absolutely. People are smart. These live selling platforms really work. Yeah. And if you're buying for $1 or less and you're starting something at 99 cents and they're paying the postage and they're bundling and they're having fun with it. Yeah, that stuff is not in there as much. A few years ago, 3-4 years ago, for sure that was in there. That deal that Rich was talking about from 4 years ago, there was a lot of that stuff in there because I bought out the guy's whole thing, and so there were a lot of base cards in there, but there are base cards of good players, and yes, that does sweeten my eBay lots that are by player. Right, but they're not tough cards, but they're nice looking, they're good. But that's not happening anymore. That's not happening anymore. Those cards, in fact, if it would be there on Thursday, it won't be there on Sunday.
Right.
And so there's a lot of people that frequent the dollar boxes that go by the player. And that's a tough way to do it because, you just have to think, I want these players. If I see it, I'll pick it up. And a bunch of people do that.
Yeah.
But I don't. I mean, I'm more likely to pick out the obscure guy.
Right. Yeah. I think another interesting.
I go back
go ahead.
And add one more thing. When we talked about Tops 2, one of the people who has value boxes, and he's going to bring his dollar boxes to the July Dallas Card Show, the other Kevin. So I'm alerting Jim to that so he knows to be there early if he can on Thursday. Is he usually doesn't see a card for a year after it comes out because he doesn't buy brand new stuff. He'll wait a year, and then when it comes to him in a collection, that's when it goes into his value box.
Right.
He almost never has a current card in his value box.
Well, even when he buys collections, he's letting the smoke clear a little bit.
Yeah.
Which is actually, that's what I do with hockey. If I get hockey, when I bought some hockey collections, I just set them aside for a year because hockey, you gotta let it percolate and see what young stars emerge, and then bring it out gradually.
Right.
Phil, the funniest and fan in the Stan Sports is our friend Phil Pierce, and one of the things is OKC Kevin is one of 3 Kevins with value boxes at the Dallas Card Show, or at least the Kevin you're thinking of.
Kevin Estes. Yeah.
This is a third Kevin. There's the Kevin who had the pod that's not there anymore of value boxes. There's the Kevin who works with Jimmy Fisher, and there's a third Kevin who's local to Dallas. It's just amazing. There were 3 guys named Kevin for a while at the Dallas Card Show, all with value boxes.
Yeah, right. Yeah, small. Sometimes we forget how small the world is. Sometimes where it just happens that the 3, like you said, the 3 Kevins all are doing kind of the same thing. I thought this was also another interesting question here. And this is maybe, I don't know if they're referencing any specific card. I know that like the Brunson Silver it's more than Luka right now. Like the PSA 10 Jalen Brunson Silver Prism rookie is more than what Luka's is. So how do you determine whether or not to sell a card that has exponentially exploded in a market like this? I mean, I don't necessarily have as much experience buying and selling cards, but if you see a card going up in price, I think it's, you probably want to sell it. And I mean, Dr. Beckett, I'll ask you this question. Like, I don't know, like the selling of cards, is there like a percentage that you look at where you say, if this card goes up a certain amount, I'm going to sell it? Or is it maybe just similar to your dollar box where it's just like, you're just kind of going with the flow and it's just the feel of things?
Guys, again, newsflash here. I am a hobbyist now, so I don't really think about that. I buy cards, I sell cards. I don't strategically. I guess I have some stuff that I've had for a long time that I don't want to sell, but it's not because it hasn't gone up. It's not because I think it's just because I like the card. So I'm a hobbyist. If you're in business, though, the philosophies of business, more people now want to get in and get out of stuff, want to take the profit. And that's not the way it was 50 years ago, but it is the way it is now. You see a lot more velocity of sales being important. And, but I don't think that's the industry. To me, the hobby is, I just got this card. I'm enjoying it. Eventually I'll sell it. I have no coffin cards, so they're going to be eventually sold.
Yeah. And then, like you said, you had fans in the stand. Sports says, sell it when it's hot. I think that's, you know, you're never going to lose money in the sports card industry selling a card that went up. Also want to give a shout out to Jeremy Lee saying what's up, saying hello to everybody in the chat. Rich, I mean, I guess kind of similar question to you. Is it like, are you kind of similar to Dr. Beckett where you are just kind of feeling it? If you want to sell a card, you want to sell it. If not, it's not something where you're like, there's a percentage that if it goes up, you're going to sell it.
Well, I've never been one of these people that has, or for all I talk about, I was always more of a collector-based dealer when I've set up at a show. I was never one of these guys, even in the late 80s when there were, when somebody would come with 588 Greg Jeffries, that was not me.
Mm-hmm.
I never did that type of market back then. I'm not doing it today, but there are some good. First, let me give a shout out. Jim, that was such a fun interview and fun discussion you had with Jeremy Lee and his father yesterday as part of your Father's Day series. I really enjoyed listening to the full backstory of both of them. I had no idea about Jeremy's dad. It was great to hear that. Jeremy's dad is very well accomplished on his own. Apparently, he's very well accomplished in the medical field. So the apple really didn't fall far from the tree with Jeremy and his dad.
I got the second half of that coming on Monday because it was
I'm so looking
we talked for an hour and I whittled it down to 30 or 35 minutes, and I probably cut too aggressively, but I know I've captured the essence. But I had spent the weekend with Jeremy and Harvey when I was up at the Toronto Sports Expo and got to know Harvey a little better, and I thought this is perfect, for the father-son tradition that I've done for the last 6 years. So that was great. So they were good sports, and I've got more coming after that, Rich, including some people you will know. So that's been a fun series.
The Friday episode, when I saw the Friday episode was 21 minutes, I said, okay, I know it's going to be good. Because I believe it's Jeremy Lee who said, when the episodes are more than 15 minutes, those are the really good ones. So we have that. And I'm looking forward really now to Monday now, which will be kind of cool. And then when we were talking about, there's an old standard rule. You sell into an up market and you buy into a down market. And one of the great, Rob Veras has said in the past, Burbank and his 42 million cards, and he's doing just fine with his life. I think he says he's got 35 million on Fanatics Collect now. Is that he bought aggressively, and he had the money, his family had the money. His dad was great, but he bought aggressively during the 94-95 strike and NHL lockout. Because he figured the market would come back and he'd be able to buy at reduced prices. And my friend Teddy Straka in New Jersey said he made his business and he really developed his business during the same time. Again, he put capital into it instead of panicking and selling out. He got aggressive and he says, I can buy these cards really cheaply. Let me do it now. Because the market will come back, whether it's slow or not, it will come back. And so it's the same principle. You sell into the up market. I mean, there are certain exceptions. You don't buy Wander Franco at this point.
Right, yeah.
Wander's career is basically done. I mean, and it's a sad story. But that's an example where I don't think you buy it. But, the overall level, if you have faith in a player that's not doing great right now, but you see that they're 22, 23 and in the majors and slight downturn, it might be still worth it if they're a top prospect to buy the cards. And so you have that. And so it's the same principle. I've never really done that, but that's one of the joys of value box diving. You see who's cold. You're not finding Shohei Ohtani's in the dollar box. And if
not anymore at least.
You buy it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I think that's kind of one of the probably an interesting thing that you've seen, Dr. Beckett, is the players that have come and gone from those dollar boxes. I mean, I bet you probably at one point there were Shohei Ohtani's in there when he was on the Angels, not so much when he's been on the Dodgers, because since he's been on the Dodgers, I think he's won the MVP or at least been in the MVP conversation every year. So it's probably interesting to see the differences in the quality of players that are in there. And you know, like you said, Dr. Beckett, like with the rise of the live selling platforms, all of those players who maybe made it into dollar boxes are now just, I mean, because essentially that's what you sort of are doing on these live platforms is you're kind of looking through dollar boxes. I mean, if they're doing these 15-second auctions, I mean, for you, you're probably flicking through the cards pretty quickly, but like the 15 seconds on one card, you know, there's a chance that you could get somebody good, or, you know, maybe you're just getting whatever you're looking for, but it's, you know, it's definitely probably an interesting change in players that have been in those boxes.
No, Adam, it's a 15 millisecond
right. Yes.
price live selling platform. When I go to the dollar box, it's 15 milliseconds, and I just make a pile. These I want, and usually have a prearranged deal. If I get a huge pile, I get an additional discount. And so it's very impulsive. So I'm not timing the market. I'm just saying, is this a good deal right now? I'm not worried about, well, this show's a little bit worse than the last one, or boy, things have really gone up. It's just, it is what it is. And so it's my version of Whatnot, except I'm not bidding. I'm only bidding in the sense there's a guy on my left and a guy on my right. And one of them is looking at stuff that I haven't seen yet and might take some stuff that I would have wanted.
Yeah.
But frequently they don't, because guys, there's different lanes.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not really competing against anybody. And wouldn't you rather buy? Wouldn't you rather have less competition?
Yeah. So. Right. Exactly.
I mean,
yeah. I mean, I guess this question, I feel like with our show, I feel like hopefully our show is a place where people can come and, you know, share positivity within the hobby. I think, you know, it is tough. I mean, I think it's, you know, when there's news or when there's things in the hobby, it's like everybody, you know, you're never going to make everybody happy within the industry. And I think the loudest voices at sometimes can be the most negative. Unfortunately, I think positivity sometimes is not as loud as the negativity at times. So, you know, I'm hoping that this show can be one of those places that people can come and kind of, you know, talk about cards and enjoy stuff. Rich, Rich, I think I cut you off there. Go ahead.
I can look at the same value box and there'll be some crossover, but about 90% of what I pull out, he wouldn't be pulling out. And about 90% of what he pulls out, I wouldn't be pulling out.
Right.
That's what he's saying. And, you know, and that's the thing. There's, you know, the old saying, different strokes for different folks, but different cards for different folks too.
Right.
And that's just most of us in the value box world. It's amazing. There's a cadre of us at the Dallas Card Show. Most of us know each other, and most of us stay out of each other's way. You know,
right.
Nobody's super hyper aggressive in there usually. And usually if they're hyper aggressive, they calm down because they realize the rest of us aren't going to tolerate it.
Right. Exactly.
Positively in the hobby, it's what you make of it.
Right.
You have to be the positive one. If, you know, the old saying, content creators, yes, negativity is great, but I hear Wax Packs Hero, whatever he's really good. He does a Sunday morning around the hobby show.
Mike.
But he always specifies at the very beginning of the thing. If I'm telling you something negative about the industry, that does not mean that the hobby needs to be bad for you. If you enjoy the hobby doing X, Y, or Z, this is just what's going on the industry level. Your hobby level is totally different than the industry level. We didn't have any industry news this week. I think this was a very positive show about things going on. And, you know, negativity sells, but positivity sells too. You know, we're not sugarcoating it. We admit their problems, but we know there's a lot of good in the hobby and the hobby overall. I went to as I said, I went to a TCG show last night. I will tell you, most of the people at the TCG show are friendlier than most of the sports card dealers. And it was really fun. And I chat with a few of them, and they'll say, no, I'm a sports card guy. I'm just here to learn a little more about, just get a general drift of your world. And they're fine with that. That's like, okay, cool.
Adam, let me speak to the negativity thing
go ahead.
That Phil Pierce brought up. And that is that negativity, I welcome negativity if it's from somebody that's talking about their experience where they were personally burned. And if I was part of that, then I'd want to know. But the negative rants where the person didn't have any skin in the game, is that this shouldn't be that way or something like that, that's different. That's different. And that's discouraging people, instead of saying, if your negativity is, I did this and I got a bad deal and I just want to vent. Okay. If there's enough specifics there where people can learn from that, then that's fine. That's fine. But a lot of the negativity is anonymous negativity about rumors and things like that. And that I think that's what's not helpful.
Right. And I don't mean to do necessarily self-promotion here, but I do feel like, if I am being negative in some type of comment, some type of content necessarily, I think that most of the time the negativity, at least from my perspective, I try to at least give a solution or something how I would fix the thing that was wrong with whatever happened. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think that there are, if you search for different content creators, you're going to find people who are positive, you're going to find people who are negative. I think it's, unfortunately, it's an industry where there's so much news and there's so much stuff going on all the time that, you'll find, I don't know, it's tough. It definitely is tough to find sometimes, but, it's, you can find it, I guess. And it's kind of, maybe it's harder to find at times, but I think that there are people who, I think all of us on the panel here are, more towards the positive side of things, and rather than the negativity, we try to at least offer a solution, or we offer some sort of different perspective on things, I think, than maybe some of the things that are just, everything is bad, everything stinks. It's, it's sometimes there's stuff like that, but I think, it's not always like that, for sure.
To give an example from when I worked for Jim in the 90s, if somebody came to the Beckett booth or came to us at a show and said, Beckett sucks, Beckett is killing the hobby, the first response is, can you tell us how we're doing this?
Right.
If all they said is, you guys are just bleeping, we would ignore them. But if the guys say, you guys are bleeping because you don't understand that Jason Terry wasn't in the NBA at the time, Grant Hill should not be going to have a down arrow, even if the market says so, because he's going to be rookie of the year. That is a specific thing we could really examine and deal with. If it was a specific thing, that was okay, because they were saying, okay, here's something you guys need to figure out. And do a deeper dive if you have to say, okay, you guys, this is why we have the empirical evidence why that card should have gone down, or why it shouldn't have. And that was always very good. But if it's like, you guys are killing the hobby, no. The hobby's still here 32 years later. We obviously did not kill the hobby at that.
Right.
But to my earlier point, that person that's criticizing about Grant Hill has a stash of Grant Hill. So a lot of times, if you were to declare your personal biases before you went into your negativity, then you'd have context. You say, okay, well, that's unfortunate, but that's not the way we have an empirical price guide. If it's selling for less, the arrows go down. So we're kind of out of time. So let's leave some stuff for next Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely here. We'll just go back around the horn one more time. Anything you want to promote, Dr. Beckett? Anything you're looking to, what you got coming up for the week? Anything you're looking to promote here?
Okay, I got Jeremy in the audience. I want to promote my Monday podcast with Jeremy and his dad. It's going to be a lot of fun. And as I think Mookie knows, that Greg Miller is up on deck after that with his dad, Michael. So, and then I've got a couple more. So I'll just tease that. So I rarely promote, but since I'm preaching to the choir here, I'll let her rip. But thanks, Adam.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely go check out Dr. Jim's podcast. Rich, anything that you got coming up? Anything you want to promote?
Next Saturday, our next show at our synagogue will be Labor Day weekend. So that's the only thing I need to promote. Next Saturday, our friends from the Waxed Empire of Sports Cards, they're having their grand opening. They've already had a soft opening of their Denton store. And I do a weekly newsletter here in DFW. And Lawrence, the owner, had a showcase at her two showcases at the last Dallas Card Show of PSA 8s of cards from the 50s that were just gorgeous. and they were PSA 8s, and I don't want to get into where they tampered with. That's not the discussion. The cards look great, and they were, and it was just nice. And those cards are going to be mostly at the Denton location, and the grand opening is next Saturday. Plus, there's a card show not that far from there, so I may meander my way up there next Saturday. And Jim, it may not be a bad thing for you to do if you have the time. There'll be a card show. There'll be at least one person with a value box that I know that will be at the Denton card show, that his value boxes are pretty good. He does my synagogue show. His value boxes are pretty good. And Raymond, I'm sure, will be there with his value boxes. And I think that will be fun. And then the grand opening, I haven't triangulated to see how far away. But if it's a Denton card show and there's a store opening in Denton, it can't be that far away from each other. So that would make a fun hobby experience next Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, and we'll be back here for episode 392 on For Collectors, Hobby Hotline. Like I said, 392. Make sure you come back here. If you want to find my content, it's just Adam Drew Palmer on any platform, any content platform you can think of: TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, all those places. So I want to say thank you to everybody for watching. Thank you everybody for leaving comments. We will see you all next week. Thank you so much. Have a good one. All right.